Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Todd Talk Show. I am super excited because I have an extra special episode today. I'm bringing on Alex Marino, who is incredibly inspiring, humble, and absolutely hilarious. Alex literally went from living in his car to writing for The Daily Show and going to the Emmys. Absolutely mind-blowing. And along the way, he got a job for Pokemon doing animation with no animation experience. He founded the Magnet Theater, a legendary comedy theater in New York City, one of the big hotspots for improv. And he also did graphics for The Daily Show, The Nightly Show, and now he's doing graphics for AMC. So let's get in to chatting with Alex. All right, everyone, welcome to the Todd Talk Show. And today I am so excited to have the Renaissance man, Alex Marino. He's been a writer on The Daily Show. He's a motion graphics artist. I internet stalked him. He's worked for Pokemon.com. He's a wine enthusiast. He's done so many different things. I am super excited to bring him on. And actually, surprising thing, Alex, you founded the Magnet Theater. I found that out about you when I was stalking you. Okay, so I thought we met in Las Vegas. We met like 10 years before that at the Magnet Theater. Yes. Okay. No, I remember you because you had your laptop at the Magnet Theater and you had just done like some graphics for a sketch or something like that, and you showed it to me, and I'm like, I do motion graphics too. And it wasn't until I saw you found that the thing about the Magnet Theater, it like flashed me back, and I just had this memory. I'm like, I hadn't met him before. We had met like 10 years ago before we met, but we had both totally forgotten we had met each other, which is probably why we clicked so immediately. So we had known each other. I had done one of those jams at the Magnet where you'd have like PBRs and everyone. Yes, I used to come to those, and I had met you, and we forgot about each other.
It's so funny. What do you remember at all? What the graphic was that I had been working on?
I think it was like you guys were making fun of some kind of reality show, and I just remember they were really flashy. Maybe it was a 3D world or something. I have very, very limited memory. I just remember you showing it on a laptop and us all crowded around, and then I'm like, another motion graphics person. I'm so excited to meet you. There's so few of us in the whole world.
Right. Yeah.
So this is really funny because I saw that, and it's just so funny. You go into that memory wormhole, and it's like, and I just remembered your beard and everything like that. It's so funny.
It's grown so much since then.
It's grown so much. So the first question I want to know about you: how did you get into motion graphics? Because like me, I started wanting to do sketch comedy, and then kind of fell into motion graphics. So I'm wondering, was it the same thing for you, or how did motion? No one really plans to be a motion graphic artist. I feel like it's something that just kind of happens to you.
Yeah. For me, it was lying. I told a lie, and that's what got me into motion graphics. I was in an improv group with a guy named Justin Aiken. Who I made like a postcard or something for our group, and he was like, "Oh, you know Photoshop?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, I work for Pokemon.com. And I was like, "I know." And he's like, "We need some stuff for our website. It's like very grunt work. It's just like, you know how to use the pen tool." And I was like, "Sure." I had never had use for the pen tool. I didn't know, but it's also like, it's the pen tool. Like, it's not that difficult to figure out. So I got the job, and basically they were making a Pokédex for anyone who doesn't know. The Pokédex has all of the Pokemon in it. They're all numbered, and it's searchable and stuff like that. So they were building it in Flash, which tells you when this was.
Oh my God.
And that was his job, was to basically rebuild an entire Flash website for Pokemon, including a Flash Pokédex that users could interact with. So my job was to go through scans of all of the Pokemon cards and to just cut out the characters themselves so that he could put them into the display of the Pokédex. And so that was like that as a job, like, lasted a while. Like, that
Yeah.
was sort of like a summer. There's a lot of fucking Pokemon. Um, so towards the end of that job, like, and the office was like super cool. Like, they had
Yeah.
like a bunch of Nintendo consoles in the conference room, and Justin's boss and his sort of equal in another department would play NFL Street a lot. And I got invited to play with them and could actually beat Justin's boss, which meant that they would like come by my desk and pull me away from work to play NFL
And
Street with
challenge
them when they,
you.
yeah, like when they wanted someone, when they wanted to, they had nothing to do, so they would pull me away. Um, and so like around the time that my that job was ending, his boss came over to me. I could sort of hear him talking to Justin and being like, "We need these flash banners for this new like cards, these cards that are coming out." And Justin's like, "I'm up to my neck in like doing the entire site." And he's like, "Does Alex know Flash?" And he goes like, "Ask him." So he came over to me and asked if I knew how to do Flash animation, and I was like, "Yeah." I didn't. I had no idea how to do it. I think I had maybe by some, you know, life finds a way to get you these programs if you're interested in learning them. Life finds a way. Life found a
It
way
does.
to get me one of these programs. I couldn't tell you how to do it nor endorse to anyone to get any of these programs in any manner other than legally purchasing them. But somehow life found
It
a
was
way, and I had,
it was before subscription for all the young people. Like After
yeah,
Effects used to cost like $3,000.
yes,
So it's
yeah,
not like now like you're paying between $30 and $60 a month, whatever you can trick them into
yeah,
letting you pay. It was
yeah,
serious money before, so like
yeah.
it's not like now. Dude, that's
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
So because I had one of those ill-gotten versions on my computer somewhere that I like played around with and been like, oh, I kind of get it. So when this guy asked if I could do that, I was like, I could probably figure it out. And Justin came over to my desk and was like, "You know how to do Flash?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, no, I
Oh
don't."
my god.
Um, but I taught myself that weekend, and then I came in on Monday and we had a meeting, and he was like, he had a big dry erase board, and he's like, "All right, so here's the pitch, and here's what we're gonna do. There's a rock, and it shakes, and it blows up, and the cards fly out, and they sort of rotate around, and then they like land, and their
Oh
eyes
my
glow. Can you
god.
do that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And behind me I could hear Justin like drop his pencil on the on the table, and could just feel him staring at the back of my head. So then his boss left, and Justin and I sat down and sort of made a plan for it. But I could kind of put it together in my head of like, all right, yeah, you know, like if you skew it this way, like I could fake it rotating, like I
Did you
could
have any
figure out how.
experience in animation and whatsoever? Had you ever animated
None.
anything before this? Nothing.
Absolutely not.
So you
No.
just went from I've never animated anything to you need to animate like Pokemon flying around and cards whizzing in three-dimensional space. So you literally
Yeah,
went from zero to doing a
that's
complicated
correct.
animation
That's
for
correct.
Pokemon.
With the 2004 version of Macromedia Flash. Yes, I did.
That is incredible. And how did it come out? Is this available? Because I want to see this if it still
Oh,
exists on the internet
so
somewhere.
he came and looked at it by the end of the day, and he was like, "That looks awesome," and was super excited about it. Fucking loved what I did. And Justin sort of like calmly, quietly comes over and like hits a couple of buttons to see like what the file size is and all of that. And he's
Like
like,
20
okay,
gigs.
he's like, this would take 30 minutes to download. So we're gonna do a couple of things to make it smaller so that it doesn't take break the fucking website. Yeah, he like kind of walked me through like, this is how you get your file sizes down. This is how you program a button that people can click, and it'll take them to the website or take them to the order site or the product site or whatever. And sort of like he really held my hand through it. But yeah, that was my first motion graphics gig. I just completely
That's
bald face lied my way into it and
That's
figured it out in midair.
incredible. That's really, really incredible. Like, I've massaged how well I know a program, like, or like that I've done animations before. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but I never was just like, yeah. If I went to Pixar with no animation experience, yeah, I
Right.
can make Wally. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I've done that. That's
Right.
I
Well, I think that's the level of ignorance that you need to have that kind of confidence to be able to say it. Like,
So when you went to the Daily Show, you're like, I've never written before. I can't write. And then you just went in and we're like,
yeah,
you're like, I've never written anything before.
right.
And you're just like, I can do this. I was illiterate.
Yeah, exactly. I was on
Oh
my
my
way to the Hustler
God.
Club around the corner and saw a help wanted sign, and and now I'm in.
Okay, because your story is super fascinating. So you're now at Pokemon. So how do you go from inventing yourself as an animator to then working as a writer on the Daily Show? Like, that's a really, I know you got into comedy and everything, but I don't really know
Yeah.
the story. So I'm interested in, that's a big leap in like where you're going from. So I want to know this story.
It's weirdly yeah, so I've always kind of done like I've done, Photoshop. I taught myself Photoshop
Yeah.
basically to make my friends laugh. Like comedy has always
Mm.
been kind of a part of my
Yeah.
life in one way or another. Um and and also, like improv groups and sketch groups and everything, most of their graphics suck. So I'm like, I want to
Yes.
at least, if I'm gonna do that, like I'll be the one on the group to fucking figure out how to make them look good.
Yeah.
To at least like try to paper over some of that. But so I did Pokemon for a while. That let me save up enough money,
Mm.
um, and actually start like putting money away, which was
Yeah.
something I had never had before and would soon not have for another decade. um, but so this group that I was in with Justin was directed by a fella named Armando Diaz, who's
Yep.
a big name in the improv community, and he was directing this group that we were doing. We moved from one theater to another theater, just like independent stages. Like this one was
Yeah.
below the Gene Frankel Theater, I think, on like Bond Street. And at this new theater, we were like, well, we got to find the bar. Like, we don't know what bar we're going to be drinking at because the other one we had our bar and we can't. That's across town now. So we just went walking around. We found a place called Slancha. On the way there, though, we passed this window that had a for rent sign in it, and Armando's just like, oh, this would be such a great place for an improv theater. This would be such a perfect, like, there's foot traffic. It's on Bowery, like right
Perfect.
north of Houston. He'd be like,
Oh, okay.
it'd be so good. And I'd be like, well, write down the number. Like, there's a number on it. Write it down and call him tomorrow morning. He's like, it's gonna be like $1 million. God, fuck, I wish I had $1 million. I was like, well, but you might be surprised. Like, just fucking figure it out. So we went and we got some beers and we were drinking, and it kept kind of coming up. He goes like, oh fuck, this is a great bar. Like, this could be our bar. Like, if that was the theater, this could be like, this is such a great spot. And I just kept saying, like, write down the number, call him or whatever. And then it became a conversation of like, all right, so let's say you actually did this. Like, what would you do differently? Like, what are the other theaters doing that you feel that there's a need for, that you would be able to satisfy that need? And it became this whole like philosophical conversation about improv and
Yeah.
about comedy. And we just drank so much, so much. And I even like at some point I was like, look, I've got some money in savings. It's not a lot, but I would absolutely invest if you were going to do it. And I think a lot of people would, because everyone sort of knew
Yeah.
Armando needed to have his own theater.
Yep.
He was at the UCB for a while. He was I think the head writer for their television show, and
Oh,
sort of like
wow.
helped kind of form their scripts together, and taught there for a long time, basically like helped build their curriculum, helped build their school. Moved over to the Pit with Ali and kind of did the same thing there. Left that and was just teaching on his own, and that's kind of where I was with him at that point. But like everyone everyone in the improv community of New York all kind of knew like Armando just needs his own place where he's not like locking horns with other owners and stuff. He just needs to be able to teach the way that he wants to teach because he is such a phenomenal teacher and such an amazing director. So in this conversation, when I was trying to be like, you don't have the money, but people will invest in this. Like people are behind you. People want you to do this. And eventually we just got super drunk and left and we're walking back up the street. And I just randomly like tried the door, on the place with the for rent sign and it popped open. So
Oh
we
my
walked
God.
into this, we walked into this space and kind of looked at it. It was like, okay, the bar would be over here, and like the stage would be here. Like the audience would probably come in this way, and we did this thing at the 10th anniversary of our theater. We had a sort of like an oral history where someone interviewed all of us and got all of our stories. And
Mhm.
I didn't realize this, but when he sort of put our stories side by side of this moment, Armando walked in and was like, and the space was just way too big for what we needed. And I was like, that space was way too small for what we needed. Um,
Difference in ambitions.
absolutely. Absolutely. But so the next morning he called and asked if that was drunk talk or real talk. And I said, why not
Mhm.
both? And we started looking. And eventually we opened the magnet and I did all of the posters and graphics. And like, that's where I got like my graphic abilities and
Yeah.
speed and skill and aesthetic and voice got so much bigger and so much wider because there were so many shows with such different aesthetics and such different crews and such different needs. And I was doing all of the posters and all of like the web
Oh
graphics and stuff
wow.
like that and
Yeah.
trying to like keep the
Did you
website
do the
looking
magnet
nice.
logo? Was you did the magnet logo?
The original magnet logo I did, yeah. It was
Wow.
this like sort of it like an M, like a big red
Yeah.
M that sort of
No, no,
looks,
no.
yeah.
Like for people who don't know and aren't in the New York comedy scene, like the Magnet's a pretty legendary improv theater. Like this
Oh,
is like no, no. This I mean it's a pretty big deal. If you're in the comedy scene in New York, like he's just throwing away around names like UCB, the Pit. These are all really big theaters, not
yeah.
physically large, but in terms of like a lot of famous people you see on TV got their start at UCB, the Pit, Magnet Theater. Like a lot of talent
Less so
comes
magnet,
through
but
these
yeah.
places. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, no, but this one was a but the
But it is a
Magnet
good
was a
time.
great
It's a
vibe,
yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
why you started it at the time because like the UCB was very much like a clique, and it was very hard to get stage time. Then the Pit was a
Yeah.
little easier, and then it was great. There was a place you like there was such demand. You could see like people needed more places to
Yeah.
perform. So
Yeah.
you went over it so quickly of like you had some drinks and then all of a sudden you have a theater. Like how did you go from like that has so like once again things happen in like 5 seconds. So it's like
Yeah.
how do you even get a an improv theater going? Like how did you even make that happen?
Oh, well we was just looking at places. Like we kept it under wraps for a long time. And he brought on a friend of his who I had met in Los Angeles and took a couple
Mm-hmm.
classes from in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And really admired as an improviser. A guy named Ed Herbstman. He brought him in, but he like had a kid and a wife and like a job in marketing and was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna have a lot of time. Like I would love to invest in this and perform sometimes and teach a class here and there, and I want this theater to happen, but I just want to let you
Yeah.
all know, like, I will not
Yeah.
have time.
He's honest.
Yeah, it totally was. And so yeah, we would just like go, it was mostly I think Armando because I had a I had a day job at Pokemon. Um,
Which just makes it better. Anytime you said at
yeah,
anytime Pokemon is involved, this improves everything.
exactly. So Armando's like running around looking at spaces and some of them are good and some of them are bad and some of them are terrifying. And we found one that like we really liked and we got close to, but the owner changed their mind because they didn't want a bunch of fucking artists in there and thought that we wouldn't pay rent and like artists don't have money. stuff like that. So we ran into that a couple of times, but then we wound up, there was one place that was a dry cleaning school, where they
Yeah.
teach people dry
Dry
cleaning.
cleaning. That's
And
another super niche.
yeah, and we couldn't really see it, that like they had a wall in a weird place, and they had like an office that was sort of like up and above, like it was sort of like weirdly laid out. So it kind of
Yeah.
took us a lot of like, if you look through this window and this window at the same time, you can sort of see the dimensions of the place, and just picture all of that machinery gone. But eventually, like, we're like, this might work. I think this is I think this
Yeah.
could work. And that was the place
Yeah.
that we eventually
That's
got.
awesome.
Yeah. And then it's a matter of like building curriculum and figuring out what the name is, and figuring out like what
Yeah.
like all of the little like minor things, all of the pain in the ass shit that goes into that.
Yeah.
And our first students were a lot of Armando's students that he was
Yeah.
teaching on his own, but also a lot of improvisers who just wanted to work
Yeah.
with Armando Diaz.
Yeah.
And me and a couple of my friends who I didn't even know at the time, but like they were kind of our first interns,
Mhm.
and first performers. And some of them went on to become our first teachers, would go out to like Washington Square Park and just hand out postcards designed by
Yeah.
me, that that were advertising our classes and shows, and um, uh, giving a discount if you bring in the card and shit like that.
Yeah. That's crazy. And so was it like a self-sustaining business and everything? Like, so were you working at Pokemon and running this, or were you able to eventually work at the Magnet full time, or how does that work?
I so around the time that we were going to open the Magnet, it
Yeah.
was becoming very clear to me that like I'm not going to have time for anything else. Like I'm going to be
Mm,
building shit and like setting up chairs and like
yeah.
fixing things, and like I'm going to be the guy physically in the space painting.
Yeah.
And not just me, but like a ton of other people, but that's going to be my life from early
Yeah.
morning until late night for an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah.
So around that time that I was trying to sort of like figure out how to part ways with Pokemon, and also try to like squeeze as much money as I can before I'm out the door, because I don't know what my income situation is going to be once we open
Yeah.
this thing up. Um, I think around that time, someone there started realizing that I didn't know what I was doing. And
Like, wait, this guy doesn't know how to animate or do anything.
kind of like, I think they started realizing like these are not elegantly made at all. Like I don't know what, like, these are held together by duct tape and band-aids. I think that we could get someone better for this job. So it was kind of like a nice little like, you got me, and also I'm too busy anyway, so we don't actually have
And I'm
to.
off into the night.
Yeah, we don't have to have this conversation. We can still feel good about each other and go our separate ways.
Oh my
Because yeah, I really
god.
liked I really liked everyone there. I really liked working there. But yeah, that was just about to take over my entire life. Was the theater.
Wow. So then the magnet took over and you were just like running the magnet?
Um, yeah, for a while, until we got other people in place who were capable of doing
Mm.
the sort of day to day, and I kind of moved over to doing more teaching and coaching, and also like picking up whatever side gigs I could,
Yeah.
some graphics work and stuff like that, to just like, because I don't want to blow anyone's mind here. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of money in improv. There's not a lot of money in make believe, or teaching adults how to make believe. Um,
Shocker.
yeah, insane taxes if you own a theater, but not a lot of money.
What,
Like,
the
boy,
taxes on a theater are high?
yeah. So the way, and this was probably just the way we had it set up, because
Yeah.
we just put all of our money back into the theater. Like, we didn't take
Mm.
any profits at the end of the year,
Yeah.
but those profits showed up on paper. And the problem
Oh
is, like,
no.
the winter months are when we do most of our work, and the summer months we do shit. Like, everything
Yeah.
is dead in New York,
Yeah.
like across the
Yeah.
board, bars, movies, anything. So
Yeah.
at the end of the year when we're like trying to hoard all of our nuts for the summer,
Yeah.
which is the inverse of how that
Taxes are
myth
due.
normally goes. Yeah, so they're like all of that money is still on paper,
Oh no.
even though none of us pocketed any of it. None of us took any of that money. So we wound up getting like
Mm,
our asses handed to us, and then we would take little disbursements from the theater to
yeah.
cover the cost of the taxes. But
Yeah.
every fucking year it was like, yay, we did so much better.
Yeah.
I personally did not make any money. Oh, and I'm fucking reamed for
And
tens of
I owe the
thousands of
IRS
dollars.
tens of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars.
Well, can I have a check, please?
Oh my
Um,
god.
yeah, so it was and sometimes the theater was like in a position where they're like, we can pay some of it. So, it all depended on the year and it all depended on the situation, but we were never in a place where we were like, phew, we're doing so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the theaters,
But
it seems like it's really a labor of love, is why people get into
yeah,
opening a. Because
exactly.
unless it's like UCB, I don't think they're really printing a whole lot of money.
Yeah, no, I mean the amount of unless we had like a shitload of classes, because we did eventually get to a point where
Mhm.
we had enough classes that the classes were
Yeah.
keeping the theater open.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where the shows were breaking even. And that was kind
Mm.
of the best that we ever did.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
the classes kept us alive until the shows were breaking even, and then
Mhm.
we can like afford to get a new chairs or something like that, or a rehearsal space, so we're not throwing away
Yeah.
money on renting crazy scary rehearsal spaces next door to Grand Central Station. And um yeah, it's once you sort of once we got to that point, it was sort of running itself. Like I didn't have to be there so much,
Cool.
um not in the day to day anyway, which is not, and
Yeah.
again, nothing that I wanted. Like it was never, when I said that I would invest, I meant that I would loan money to Armando and maybe he would pay me back when he
Get
was
some
able.
return.
I had no plans to fucking open a theater, but it happened.
But that's
Um
awesome. But dude, that I mean, that
yeah,
was awesome, and like that's so cool you were part of that because that the Magnet was such a part of the New York comedy scene,
yeah,
and just to be
yeah.
part like that, I mean, like that's so many people got their started, and so many, I'm sure so many people now you even see on television came through working there, putting
Well,
on shows and getting their start.
completely. And I mean that was how that that was the beginning of my path to the Daily Show as well.
Yeah.
Not I mean, I'd clearly heard of the Daily Show prior to that, but
You're like, I had never heard of the Daily
I had
Show.
never heard of, this is my first experience in comedy. Um no, that was, I had a student who you might know, a fella
Yeah.
named Joe Detmore.
Oh
Um
yeah.
took a class and was just this like delightful, affable gentleman taking improv classes, and was so much fun to hang out with at the bar afterwards, and just so funny and so nice. Um, and at some point he kind of like sidles up to me and he's like, did you design these posters? I was like, yeah. He goes, you should come by my work sometime. And I was like, okay, where do you work? He's like, the Daily Show. And I was like, oh, well then yes I should. um and so eventually, like, I went to the Daily Show and I just like sat in the graphics room, kind of like watching how they did stuff. And he's like, just watch, see what we do, and the thing that I paid most attention to is like, all right, what are the programs that these people are using?
Mm.
Um, because if I will, life will find a way to get them to me if I need to learn them. Um, and so that's when they're working on After Effects and Cinema 4D, and that's where all of the motion graphics are coming from. And I was like, okay, these are things I should learn. These are probably some things that I should get to know. And he tried for a long time, I think, to get me into that room, and it
Mhm.
just didn't happen. Eventually I sort of like accepted that it wasn't going to happen, but I had started
Yeah.
playing around with After Effects and Cinema 4D and like sketch comedy and
Mm.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like we had a sketch that it cuts from the live sketch to a video where someone wakes up in a Roman Colosseum full of lobsters and has to battle, do hand to claw combat a lobster to the death, in order to get out so he can make make the curtain of the opera that he's going to. It's absurd. It's a ridiculous sketch that went a ridiculous place. And at the end of it, like, we read through it and the group liked it. And it just became a conversation of like, how do we do this on stage?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what if we cut to a video? And they're like, well, how do we do it on video? That doesn't fix anything. Again, I was like, give me the weekend to try to figure it out. And I taught myself green screening, and I found some lobster
Oh my
puppets,
goodness.
and I sent them some like experiments that I was doing in my own apartment, and they were like, holy shit, we might actually be able to do this. But so that was how I started teaching I built the Coliseum in Cinema 4D. It was very cheap and very fast and very embarrassing to look at now. But it was just like fucking consuming tutorials and learning
Yeah.
these programs to make something to make my friends laugh.
That's so awesome. So
Yeah.
that happens, and then so how did they? Is that when they noticed you, that video, or how did you get into the room at the Daily Show?
Oh, well, eventually, Joe reaches out to me, I think years after he first tried getting me in there,
Mhm.
saying like, hey, one of our people had to step away for a while. They're
Mhm.
out on family business.
Yeah.
And they didn't do subs. Like, if you were
Yeah.
out, everyone else in the room just figured out how to do it. But this person was
Yeah.
going to be away for long enough that they were like, maybe we bring in a substitute for a little bit. We have some big graphics
Mhm.
coming up, and just have someone at least doing the over the shoulder, mock-ups would be nice. So they brought me in, and we had like a little interview with Joe and Jen Flans, one of the EPs there, and they was very nice, and it was fun. And when I was walking away, they called to say that they were gonna they wanted me to come in on Monday, that there would be someone else calling me in a
Beautiful.
little bit to about prices, about
Holy crap.
prices, yeah, about rates or whatever. So I called
Prices.
prices. What's your price?
$5.
Like, I literally just reverted to like my idiot brain back then of like, what is my price? I don't know. I don't know the terms for any of this. But so I reached out to Joe immediately, and I was like, what do people make? I don't know what should I, how much should I be making for this? And he was very diplomatic about it, and I kind of got the feeling that maybe there was someone in the room that he couldn't talk totally freely, but basically
Yeah.
gave me the
Oh.
impression that it was like, he's like, they're probably gonna lowball you,
Mhm.
so you can negotiate up from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, get what you can. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So they called, and I do believe they lowballed me.
Yeah.
They offered me a pretty low day rate, to which I said yes, please, because it was
I mean,
still
it's the Daily
it was
Show.
still
It's the like.
it's the Daily Show, and
Yeah.
it was more than I was making like in anything else. Like, it was still like, it was a respectable amount of money that I would be
Yeah.
pulling away from this. And like, fucking, it's the Daily Show. I get to be there. I get to be in the place and like meet the
Yeah.
people. And
Is this when Jon
maybe
Stewart was on it or Trevor
this was
Noah?
Jon Stewart. Yeah,
Wow.
this was Jon Stewart years.
I mean,
I think
this show legendary.
yeah. Well, the guest, the last, I think the last day that I was scheduled to work was the Wu-Tang Clan. That was when they
Wow.
brought them in. Like, I had to duck. I went to like the snack table and was on my way back, and there was like a crowd of people, and I suddenly realized someone was taking a photo on an iPad of Jon Stewart and Ghostface Killah, I think.
Oh my
Um
god.
and I was like right in the middle of the two of their heads, and was like, shit, and just like ducked down so that I wouldn't be photo bombing this momentous photo for the two of them. But yeah, that was my that was my Forrest Gump moment of that job. But yeah, it was a great job.
What was it? What would like what would the average day as a graphic artist on the Daily Show like? What? was it like he was just coming up with ideas? Like what is a day in the life of like a graphics artist on the Daily Show like?
I can actually, it's interesting because having now also been a writer, like
Mm-hmm.
I've been on both sides and sort of know,
Yeah.
oh, this was what was
Oh.
happening when we were waiting for them to get us that.
Yeah.
So there's a morning meeting, and there's a writers meeting and a morning sort of all hands meeting that happen to sort of like plan out whatever, like these are all of the things that are gonna all the stories that are gonna be done, all the stuff that's gonna be happening at the show today.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody kind of goes to their office and like get some coffee, and on Wednesdays they have breakfast sandwiches, and you sort of settle in. um and the writers are doing their writing, and like writing away at the scripts, and that's all going at, like, you can watch the scripts as they're writing them if you're so inclined, or if it's your job to. So there's a guy there named Dave Blog who would be reading the scripts as they're coming up, and every time a new
Mm-hmm.
graphic pops up, he would just copy it, put it off to the side, like these, and then start like looking online, trying to find elements that people can pull from, and just like sending out assignments essentially, like as they're coming in, of like, all right, you're working on this, you're working on this, you've got this. But like the first, little bit is just kind of waiting for the writers to finish their drafts, so we know what our graphics are going to be, and then getting our graphics and like starting to build them. And then rewrites happen, and some graphics get dropped at the rewrite time. So if you might be in the middle of something and it's like that just got cut, it's like, okay, well, I'll stop.
Mm,
Or like a new thing will happen, like there are like changes throughout the day that'll happen.
yeah.
And then ideally we get all of the graphics in before the rehearsal, like that they have in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of the day, sort
Mm-hmm.
of middle of the day. They have a rehearsal where they run through everything. They have all of the graphics that they have. If there's a TK they need to they put up a TK, but generally you want all the graphics in at that point.
Well, what's a
um
TK?
oh, a TK is just to come, but
Oh, to come.
because I guess I actually looked this up recently, and because TC happens, like, you can't, it's harder to search through stuff looking for
Oh, interesting.
TCs. But so if you put TK and you just do a search for TK, then you can find all of the
Mm,
things that
the
still need to
missing
be
items.
fixed.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. You don't have to weed through as many things. Um, so yeah, that's the rehearsal. Then there's one last round of rewrites where sometimes things get changed, sometimes a new graphic comes up. That's rare. It does
Mhm.
happen sometimes, but while that's happening, the audience is coming in. So the audience is
Yeah.
just sort of like flowing into the house. And once they're all in, and once the script is locked, they send out the warm up comedian, and then when the warm up comedian's done, John goes out and starts the show.
Wow.
He does a little Q&A at the beginning, and then they play Born to Run while he's at the desk.
Every time,
And
every day.
yeah, every day it's Born to Run. Um, and I never had a complaint about it. It was great. It was perfect. It's exactly what you want. It's exactly what you want from John, is to watch him at his chair bobbing to Born to Run right before he comes out and does the fucking Daily Show.
Was it surreal just being there? Because I mean, that's like, I feel like one of the most legendary. Him on the Daily Show, I feel like
Yeah.
was one of the most legendary. I mean, I think he's one of the greats of all time. Like,
Yeah.
did you just feel like you were witnessing something incredible?
Completely. Like I saw the first. I remember Craig Kilborn. I remember when Craig
Yeah.
Kilborn left and Jon Stewart took over, and
Yeah.
one of my friends was like, I don't know if he's gonna be good as Craig Kilborn. And I was like, have you seen him do stand up? I think he might be better. And it turns out
yeah.
he was pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was incredible being there and watching it happen and being a part of it. And getting
Yeah.
to like I made a graphic once that was a World War II tank with a like a Pizza Hut thing on the top of it, like a delivery car, like the tank is delivering
Yeah.
pizza. with a little thing, and at the rehearsal, when it popped up, it made him laugh. Like Jon Stewart laughed at a thing that I made,
Wow, that must have
which
been
was such
insane.
yeah, it was an amazing feeling. Um, yeah, it was nice. It was a really nice. It was incredible working on that show. It's such a cool
Do you
place.
just
It's such a
keep
nice
that
like.
clip on your phone, and every time you're down, you just play
Well,
Jon
the sad thing,
Stewart? I would just take that every time I met anyone. Like this
yeah.
graphic I made Jon Stewart laugh.
The sad thing was that was during the rehearsal, so there's no clip of it. But there was
No.
it gets worse. So legal was like, I don't think we get to use that logo. I don't think we're allowed to put that logo on the thing. We have to make up a
No.
fake pizza place
No.
and put that on the sign instead. So it was like I made like Arturo's Pizza or something and like just made a
Yeah.
fake looking pizza thing. And on the show when it popped up, he like looked over at it with delight in his eyes and then he was just like, "They changed it. We had to change that for legal reasons." And he
Oh,
was like,
he said that on the show. He
he
said they
said that
changed
on the
it.
show. Yeah, he goes, "Oh, do we have
Oh.
to change that?" Oh well, and then like continued on with the show. Um, but yeah, like yeah, it was super fun being there, and you learned just so much just being in that room.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you ever interact with him? Like, did he ever come talk to the graphics department, or was there total separation?
Uh, I he very rarely came into the graphics room. Um, I've interacted with him maybe 3 times total, all of them having to do with food. Because at lunch they had catering. They would bring in food, so you didn't have to like leave and go find lunch. You
Yeah.
just you stand in line with all of your coworkers and you get lunch. And there were a couple of times that I wound up in line like either across the food from him or he was like a couple back or a couple up. And at one point it was tacos, and he called everyone in the room Takovians. He said, "Greetings, Takovians." And when we got there, we were across from each other, and he was like, "What you got? What you got going there?" "I got some radishes in there." "That's a good amount of radishes. That's not too much radishes. I think you're gonna enjoy it." And like we had a brief little back and forth about like what we were getting for our tacos, and that's it. Like that's what. And every other time that I've talked about him, it's always been about food.
So if you meet Jon Stewart, talk about food. That's the key
He would love
takeaway.
it. He would love it. Talk to him about he want sandwiches, bagels.
Oh
He
my!
was so happy to talk about that shit.
My favorite, one of my favorite comedy clips of all time is him talking about Chuck Schumer going to a diner.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see that one? Like, I will watch that clip, just him talking about Chuck Schumer at a diner. I watch it like once a year just when I need a laugh. It's like one of my
Yeah.
favorite things. So how long were you doing graphics on the Daily Show, and how did you transition from graphic artist to writer? Because it's like I've been a motion graphics artist on shows before, but I never
Yeah.
saw any kind of path. Like you, like no, when you're a
Yeah.
motion
It's
graphics
weird.
artist, like it's like you are in a cage. And
Yeah.
for people who don't work in television, it's like you're usually put in a small room with no windows and like kept away from like
Yeah.
all the talent and everything. You're like separated from them. So how do you
Yeah.
go from being separated in the graphics room to make it as a writer on Daily Show?
Well, I mean, so running the theater, um basically what my evenings would be like would be going and either doing shows or watching shows, or like people that I've coached or directed are doing shows or teaching classes and going to the bar afterwards and probably closing out the bar because I have a problem, and going home. For me, I don't sleep at night left to my own
Yeah.
devices. If I don't have to wake up in the morning, which working at a theater, you definitely do not, I would just go home and still be awake. And I would either write, or if I was too drunk to write, I would teach myself graphic shit. Like I would just watch tutorials and play around and try to figure out how to use these programs that I now had, like
Yeah.
After Effects and Cinema 4D specifically. and just try to fucking crack it open. And it was all, Video Copilot. I went through those. I actually had like my proudest moment when I realized like, oh, I'm actually learning shit was I had a sketch where we had to do something that I sort of like pieced out and figured it out myself. And then like a couple of weeks later, Video Copilot dropped a tutorial about how to do the thing that I had taught myself to do.
Oh,
And
whoa, that's
like
crazy.
watched how he did it. And I was like, that's basically exactly how I did it.
Wow.
And so it was like that. And what were the other ones? Motionworks, Grayscale Gorilla.
Grayscale.
Um, yeah, those were the big three that I would look at to just learn how to use those programs. Um, yeah, it was all just experimentation and play.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I was, and again, like I was writing constantly, like I was just,
Yeah.
always practicing doing that. And,
Were you putting on a lot of shows, like writing a lot of sketch shows and things like that
yeah,
at the Magnet? That makes sense.
yeah, putting up sketch shows too and stuff like that. We had sketch teams where you put on a show every week or every other week, once a
Yeah.
month. I think it was once a month. But I was also in like an improv group that became a sketch group, and we you know came up with just a shitload of sketches that some of them were good, and a lot of them required graphics. But so that was I was cutting my teeth there writing, and I had
Yeah.
always wanted to be a writer. Um, that was kind of my goal. That was my reason for wanting to go to New York in the first place.
Yeah.
Was to sort of find that path. But then I was in the writers' room and or in the graphics room, and they had sort of announced that a couple of the writers were going to be leaving, and they would be
Mhm.
looking for writers. And I just asked
Wow.
Flans, I asked the EP, like if it would be okay if I submitted, and she was like, "Yeah, sure." And she like gave me the information, and so I submitted, and this was probably like the third time over the years that I had submitted to the Daily Show.
Oh, so
Uh,
you had been trying. Like they have like
yeah,
regular calls? And for people who don't know what submitted means, could you explain what
yeah.
submitted? Like you're
So
submitting a packet, right?
yeah, you have a packet, and so every show is
Yeah.
different. For the Daily Show, it's they sort of they give you a little bit of a format, and they're like, we need this many pages of whatever, like monologue type, or like headlines, what they call them at the start of the
Yeah.
show. They have all the headlines, like do a headline section, and do a desk piece where it can either be like a longer section, or
Mhm.
where they're talking with one of the correspondents, something like that. So we want a desk piece and headlines. So yeah, that's kind of the first round, is you submit that, and then if they like it, they you get the second round, which is they basically tell you a topic that you're going to be writing on. They give you a bunch of news clips to use for like quotes and things like that, and
Mhm.
then you just write a piece, a longer piece about that topic, using those clips, however you see fit. For me, that topic was it was the I believe it was the year anniversary of Trayvon Martin.
Jesus
So it was a
Christ.
real,
And you had to make something funny about that?
yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
because it was all about
god.
like it's all about like what's happened in the year, like where are we now, like the BLM
Yeah.
movement and like all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I wrote that thing, and I tried to go through it the best that I could. And so after that, they called me in for an interview. Which I went to the interview, and the first thing that Steve Bodo, one of the other EPs, said to me was, "We had no idea you were funny." Um,
Is that? I don't know if that's a nice thing to say. It's kind of mean.
it is
You
a
don't
little
look
bit, but
funny.
yeah, but I took it as a compliment, and Bodo has a way of saying shit like that. That's kind of mean, but thank you. Like it was nice to hear like the first thing sitting down to an interview. Um, yeah, and then I had the interview, and I kind of just figured like, oh, this is just to make sure that I'm a sane person.
Yeah.
And then Bodo, I was out with a friend the next day, or maybe a couple of days later, just a random, we just like ran into each other recently and were like, you want to grab some coffee? And like went and got some coffee, and I got a call saying we want to offer you the Daily Show.
Wow. Were you
And
just like, was your brain just like that must have been absolutely insane.
yeah, it was
I mean, that's the dream job for a writer, based like I mean, in terms of
yeah,
comedy, that's like
well,
I
it
can't
certainly
think of
was.
a more prestigious show to write
Yeah,
on.
yeah, it had been my dream since junior high to
Yeah.
write for
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
So it was huge, and they're like, we're going to be reaching out in a little bit to get to like talk you through all of the information of like getting you set up. um and yeah, it was legitimately a life-changing moment.
Yeah.
And so yeah, then I did that for a bit. Yeah.
How did it change? Like, how did it change going from being a graphics artist to being a writer on the show? Was it interesting overnight to just being in the graphics like cave to then being let
Yeah.
out to like
Oh
the
yeah.
writer world? That
I'm
must have felt
upstairs,
like I'm
baby.
free.
I'm upstairs
Yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly. It's like Downton
Yeah, we get
Abbey.
the good
Exactly.
snacks.
It's like
Um,
you had been. It's like Cinderella or something. It's like you
yeah.
had been down mopping, and then they give you the shoe, and it fits, and your whole life changes.
um, yeah, it did. Like, you know, you're in a bigger room, but then you're also in a smaller room because you're in an office with another writer.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it does, like it changes a lot. You see, I mean, you see more people, which is
Yeah.
a double-edged sword. But
Yeah.
you know, there is something nice about like being in the graphics room and not just like being left alone. Like you can just kind of live your life down there and like listen to your podcasts or like work on your own projects or do whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're writing on something, like it's every day, and it's like there is
Yeah.
like I think a bit more pressure sometimes.
Yeah.
um yeah, it was different, but also like there were, oh man, there were so many times when I would be working on a script with someone and they would write in a description of a graphic, and I would pause for a second to be like, we might need to be more specific about what we're asking for, and get to like and be like, okay, here, and I would just like move over and like write in what the thing is,
Oh
be
my
like,
god.
okay, that will make Dave happier.
The
Um,
graphics people must have loved you. It's like one of our own finally made it.
well, but then there would be times that I'd be like, oh fuck, I have an idea for a graphic that's a little bit complicated, but it would really sell this joke, and I'd like write it in, and I would still like I would pop into the writer's room, or the graphics room before I left
Gotcha.
sometimes, and I popped in at one point, and Dave just looks at me, he's like, you motherfucker. He's like, this one, really? Why don't you try, you're a writer now,
Why
so
don't
why
you
don't you
do it?
try, he's like, well, you're a writer, so try telling jokes with words instead of pictures. And I was like, that's very funny.
Touche.
Touche.
Wow.
But yeah, no, it was generally, it was like it's a lovely office full of lovely people and just dogs.
Yeah.
It just dogs are running
Yeah.
everywhere, and um, yeah, my first week as a writer, I wanted to meet the dogs because there were so many more dogs upstairs. Uh, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit this. I went to I went to a deli and got my coffee and was like, "Give me a little bit of salami too." And I
Oh
stuck
my
some
god.
salami in my sock so that the dogs would follow me. And then
They
I'd
would think
pet,
you were like the chosen one.
yeah, like so the dogs would follow me to my desk, and I'd give them a little salami, and I would meet the dogs and become friendly with the dogs and eventually with their owners as well. And that was kind of how I made friends at the Daily Show.
Good
Was
networking
by
hack. Put salami in your sock, and then
yeah.
you will meet Daily Show writers. So I'm gonna keep that
Mhm.
filed away. If you're listening, young people, keep salami in your sock on your
Yeah.
first day at a new job.
Yeah. If there's dogs in the office and you want to make friends, find a way to surreptitiously feed their dog salami out of a sock.
Was it stressful? Like, did you feel like a lot of pressure being a writer there? Like, was it like it seems like tremendous amount of material to come up with in a day. Like,
Yeah.
what would one writer be responsible for? Like, how much is one person writing? Like, are you writing like 20 jokes in a day? Are you like what are you even? It seems like when you watch from the outside, I was like blown away. Like, how are they writing so
Yeah.
much funny stuff so quickly?
Yeah, I don't know how other people did it necessarily, but I always started just like reading through all of the quotes and kind of like picking the ones that I liked and sort of know where like where does the story start and just start at the beginning and try to find like a logical progression through the story
Yeah,
with jokes along the way.
yeah.
Because to me a lot of it is like I always looked at it as explaining complex ideas to my idiot friends while we're all drunk.
Mm.
And that's kind of like the way that I sort of thought about it. Is like, how would I tell this story to someone? Like, hey, this is fucked up. You want to hear about this? And but I also get like graphics and things like that, and it's a news parody show, so there's that sort of level kind of layered on top of it. And it is stressful because you
Yeah,
realize like if you're fucking stuck, like I know there's a joke here, I don't know what it is. You can always just say joke TK and then
yeah.
roll on with the rest of the thing. Like you're around, that's the thing that like makes it less stressful is you're around
Mm.
some of the funniest fucking people in the business
Mm.
and some of the most
Yeah,
brilliant minds in the comedy news world, the ever growing
yeah,
world of comedy news. um Everybody's mind is going to be on this. Like any jokes
yeah,
that we need a new thing or whatever, they would put those in a document that was just called they would call ganging it out, where
yeah,
anyone who's not writing on something right now just look at the gang folder and see like
yeah,
just go through all of the jokes that need a better punchline or need a better joke with it, and they'll
yeah,
sort of like have a description of the setup, and then you just have to go through and you've got a whole floor full of writers just making each other laugh and making writing in their best possible jokes. um and there's also the thing of like as you're writing it, if you're ever feeling like there's a snag, like there may be a couple of things that he's like, okay, got that one, I nailed that one, the rest of this I'm kind of iffy on, there's another writer writing the same thing. So they'll have two
mm,
writers who are doing their own separate passes or two writers who are working together on one pass. And if it's a separate pass, there's a little bit of like, this is the first draft,
mm,
they've probably got something for this part. Like
yeah,
if this falls apart, that because once they sort of mash them together, once you
hmm,
get them in and you get to like go grab your lunch or whatever and then come back, when you get notes on your pass, they'll bring you into this room and kind of go through it and be like, all right, we really liked this person had a really cool like arc. We like the arc that this person had, the structure of the
mm,
story, and we like these jokes from it, but we like these jokes from the other one. So can we try to like incorporate these jokes that we liked from the other pass into the
mm.
structure of this one? And that was so it's collaborative in that way. And then the two writers would
So it
go
was
back
really a
together and sort of
team.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So like,
Um,
I've heard a lot of writers' rooms are like super competitive and cutthroat. Did this feel like more everyone was working together, or did it still have that like
Absolutely.
competitive edge?
No, I never got any feeling or wind of that.
Wow, wow,
There's a little bit of like just making fun of each other and teasing each other
yeah,
that happens because it's you're all comedians.
yeah,
And I'm like I I'm a little on the shy side when I'm first meeting a group
yeah,
of people. It
yeah,
takes me a little while. But once I realized like, oh, it's like fucking schoolyard. You just make fun of them
yeah,
back. You just
yeah.
find the biggest bully and punch him. And so I made fun of I made fun of one of the other writers at one point after they made fun of me, and it got a good reaction. And after that, everything was kind of fine.
And then I became the bully king.
Then I became the bully. Yeah.
Wow. So that's so fascinating.
Mhm.
So so you're writing at the Daily Show. So what was kind of where does your passion lie? Is it writing? Is it graphics? And now where you are now, like how are you pursuing where you want to be? Are you looking to do both, or you have one that you really lead toward, or how do you kind of split your time between that and all the other 8 million things that you have going on?
Right. Um yeah, I mean my passion is writing. I think that's where
Yeah.
I want to be.
Hmm.
Um but I also really love graphics.
Yeah.
Like I had a realization at some point that if this is my life, like if the writing thing doesn't work out and this is my
Hmm.
life, that's a pretty fucking good life.
Yeah.
Like if I just do this forever, and then
Yeah.
periodically, like maybe I produce my own shit,
Yeah.
um, there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's kind of great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like so I actually I've been working with your last guest,
Yeah. Sarah.
with Sarah Wycliffe. She brought me on when I moved out to Los Angeles, to California, a couple of years ago, with a brief stop in Napa. My girlfriend is in the wine world, and we weren't really sure at that point, like, are we going our separate ways? Like things were going really well with us, but like she hated New
Yeah.
York. I had been thinking about Los Angeles. She wasn't
Yeah.
sure that she was going to like Los Angeles because she didn't want to just move to another, like she thought it was going to be New York but on the West Coast. And
New York, but more cars and smog.
yeah, exactly, like she was like, I'm going to hate it, I know I'm going to hate it. But she was like, I'll give it a shot at least.
Yeah.
And as we were sort of like looking at it, she's like, would you want to go to Napa before we move to Los
Mm.
Angeles? And I was like, for how long? And she's like, 4 or 5 months, so I could work the harvest. Like
Yeah.
she had a dream of working the harvest, of a wine harvest, any wine harvest, be it in Napa or Australia, Japan, like anywhere. She had been looking at all these other wine harvests that she was like trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to do, and she just like randomly submitted it for Napa, at a couple
Yeah.
of wineries, and a couple of them got back and they were like, yeah, we want you, like come
Wow.
out. um and I was like, I would totally do that. And she was like, all right, I
It's
didn't
a
think
nice
you
place to live.
would. Yeah, she's like, I didn't think you would. Okay, well now I have to tell one of them yes. um so she did, and she's like, you wouldn't be able to move out in like 2 weeks, would you? And I was like, yeah, I
Oh
could do that.
wow.
And she was like,
Dude,
well, I
where
didn't
were you
expect you to
working at
say.
the time?
I was actually in between things. Like things had just sort
Oh
of wrapped
wow.
up.
Yeah.
Um
So
yeah,
you had just wrapped up on the Daily Show, or what was like
no,
what were you doing at that time?
I left the Daily Show, worked on the Nightly Show. The Nightly Show got
Yeah.
canceled. I was doing graphics on the Nightly
Okay.
Show and sort of submitting writing to other things. Um, uh, the Nightly Show Nightly Show was where I met Sarah and Tom Whitty,
Yeah.
and oh, this will be good for the kids to know. So
Yeah.
uh so uh uh Dale Robinson, I can never
Hmm.
remember if it's Dale Robinson or Dale Robbins. I think it's Dale Robinson, was the head of the graphics room at the Nightly Show. And when I was never like a permanent member of the Daily Show graphics room or the Nightly Show
Hmm.
graphics room. They would just sort of
Hmm.
bring me into either one when they needed an extra pair of hands. And
Yeah.
at some point when I was at the Nightly Show, I think the second or third time that they brought me in there, she sort of
Yeah.
pulls me aside and she's like, I lost, I can't remember what your day rate is here. Um, I remember that it was low, and like held that, like like kept eye contact with me, and was like, and I remember thinking he should be getting paid more than this. But I couldn't remember what your rate was. Is this your rate? And showed me a rate that was higher than what I was getting paid. But also probably, I guess, not what I should have been getting paid.
Yeah.
But she did, like, that was such a fucking solid and such a nice, like,
Yeah.
slick way of being
This was
like, yeah,
Sarah that did this. This
this was
was
not Sarah. This was her boss.
oh
This was
oh her
because Sarah
boss.
was
Got it. Got it.
yeah.
Got it.
Um, but then I started working when I went to work for Sarah, on another show, on the Rundown, with Robin Thede, where she was in charge of the graphics room.
Yeah.
We had a similar conversation where like the line producer sold me a bill of sales to get me in there. Like I thought that I was going to
Yeah.
be getting paid one thing, turned out I was getting paid considerably less.
Oh no.
Still more than I was getting at the, and I was happy for it. Like again, like
Yeah.
I'm easy to please.
Yeah.
But Sarah wasn't even aware of what had happened, and then that line producer got
Yeah.
fired, and a new guy came in, and there was this whole hullabaloo. And Sarah actually got pissed on my behalf that I was getting paid what I was getting
Yeah.
paid. And she basically said, like, here's the minimum that you should be getting paid. You should not
Yeah.
accept less than this for any job that you ever take from here on
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And that was again, that was a really fucking solid thing. She
Yeah.
was such a great boss. She still is
Fabulous.
just a wonderful boss. Yeah.
And for people who think this is chaotic, like this is the nature of television. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are on project. Like for people who don't have experience in the industry, it's like you are on a project, off a project. It is like constant chaos, and a lot of people are
Yeah.
on freelance sort of randomly. So for you, so you're a writer. Was it hard to then transition to go back to do graphics, or were you happy to go back to graphics, or like what was kind of your feeling in that time period?
Well, my my feeling, uh I had a feeling when I was walking away from the Daily Show of, well, it was my dream to write for the Daily Show, and now
Yeah.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
But then it occurred to me, like, no, it was my dream to write for the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and
With
that show
Jon
doesn't
Stewart.
exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like Trevor Noah was a great boss, is the
Yeah.
nicest, coolest guy. Like I have nothing bad to
Yeah.
say about that or about the way that the show is run or about and the impossible task that they had of
Yeah.
starting a new show in the wake of Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, that
you know,
was, yeah.
yeah, I have absolutely nothing bad to say about them or anyone there. Um, but it was sort of like a sobering realization that
Mhm.
my dream job doesn't exist anymore. So I guess I
Mm.
need to come up with a new dream.
Yeah.
and and that was uh so that I guess it was to be a showrunner. It was to run my own shit.
Yeah.
It was to have my own thing. And so
Mhm.
part of that was like, all right, well, any job that I have that puts me in a room where TV is being made, that's
Mm.
the job that I need. Like, I want to learn the ins and outs of this machinery, so that at some point when I have to run it, I know what everyone is doing and what goes into it. And you know, like I'd still submit for like writing stuff sometimes. And
Yeah.
when I moved out to Los Angeles, I'm jumping around in time a lot, but when I came out to LA, I reached a point. So Sarah had been giving me a lot of her overflow when she was
Mhm.
started working from home, which was great because that kept me from having to also work the wine harvest. These are writers' hands. These are not workmen's hands. I can't do manual labor with these soft little babies. No, 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 no. This is this is the body for a sedentary life. Uh but yeah, so she was sending me a lot of like graphics work, and I would just like
Yeah.
sit at wine bars and drink coffee up until the point that I started drinking wine, and then pick Amanda up from work and go home.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to LA, like she got a job, she got the AMC work that she's doing now, which has been awesome. I get to
Mhm.
work with her on that and work with AMC. And the team that we have is insanely talented and super fucking
Mhm.
cool and chill and
Mhm.
funny and
Yeah.
just a delight to work with. And Amanda's working with us now. Like
Yeah.
she left the wine stuff in the pandemic and stuff.
Oh
Like
yeah,
she
you
went to
trained a wine your wine
yeah,
wife to be a graphics artist.
yeah. Well, I mean, she went to school for art, and it turned her off
More
of
experience than you.
yeah, she's more experienced than I am. Like once I started like sort of I gave her one of my old Wacom tablets and just sort of like she started experimenting in Photoshop, and I was like, at some point you're going to be making more than I am in this. Like your rate is going to be considerably higher than mine for what you're able to do.
At some point, you won't have to lie to Pokemon that you know
Yeah.
Flash.
Yeah. Exactly.
You will be drawing the
Yeah.
actual
You
Pokemon.
actually you actually know what you're doing here. Uh, but so yeah, I've been doing that, and then I you know I saved up. You know, once we had an apartment and we had furniture and a car and like all
Mhm.
of the expenses that you have when you go from New York to Los Angeles,
Mhm.
um, I finally saved up enough that I could like take a couple of months off, and like I had some
Mhm.
meetings set up and some
Mhm.
people who were interested in maybe taking me on as a
Mhm.
client, and I could start,
Oh, wow.
putting my focus into being a writer, an LA writer.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Wow.
and that was March of 2020, and
And
all
then
of those
nothing
meetings,
happened.
yeah, all of those meetings went away. And I was suddenly without a job because I had walked away from the AMC thing. But
Oh,
thankfully,
no.
Sarah reached out and was like, they offered us, she's like, I know you want to focus on the writing stuff, but
Yeah.
they just offered us another permanent seat if we wanted to
Mm.
bring on another graphics, and I wanted to give you the right of first refusal.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna can I come back? And she
You
was like,
thought you were out and graphics pulls you
absolutely.
back in.
Exactly. But I'm so grateful to have had this through the
Yeah.
pandemic, and especially like, most of my friends
Yeah.
are most of my friends are artists, performers, um,
Yeah.
and like bartenders and waiters, and stuff like that. So it was nice to be able to be in a position where if any of them needed a little bit of help, that I could actually kick
Yeah.
them something
Oh,
to
that's
try
amazing.
to help keep people above water however I could.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's
So
been a
then the
weird year.
future for you. Yeah. So then once the pandemic over, it looks like the next thing is you will tell people you've run many shows and you will
Yeah,
be producing, shooting, doing everything on a major feature film.
that's correct. That's correct. That's my plan. I'm just gonna fucking lie. I just go back to my roots. Just go back to my roots and fucking lie about it.
So the
Um,
goal now,
yeah.
you're trying to get shows off the ground, or you're trying to become a staff writer, or what's kind of the dream now, and how are you kind of balancing graphics and your dream?
It's weird. I've sort of so I wrote a pilot with my comedy partner Bianca Casusol.
Hmm.
Um and we're still in the process of like polishing it up before we
Yeah.
send it off to people that we know to get feedback from,
Hmm.
before we send it off to professional people.
Yeah.
And just sort of like shoring that up and polishing that. And I really like the process of that. Um at some point I'll have to get off my ass and try to, make those meetings again and do that stuff. And it's hard when I have a job that I
Yeah.
enjoy. And there's
Yeah.
also something that I've been talking about with one of my friends who I'm sure you'll probably interview at some point, Ryan Mouskopf,
Oh, yeah.
where, yeah, he and I had started sort of banding around some collaborative ideas of working together on some stuff and just like producing our own shit.
Yeah.
Like, and whether that becomes something that we try to shop around as like a proof of concept that hopefully someone pays us for, or whether it's just like we just do our own fucking thing, kind of
Yeah.
remains to be seen. But that's kind of the thing of like, at a certain point, at a certain point you realize or re-realize, and I feel like this is a lesson that I keep relearning over and over again, is that you don't have to wait for anyone's permission to do the thing you want to do. um
Mm.
like professionally, in a lot of things you should definitely get permission. Like, if but like goals for your life, like, if you want to make a movie, make a movie. If you want to be an animator, animate shit. Figure it out. Learn how. There's people who are going to be so happy to teach you. And also there's so much that you can learn on your own. Werner Herzog stole a camera. he hadn't he hadn't seen a film until he was 11 years old. Stole a camera and made his first film when he was 17. Like, uh if that
Life
if that
finds a way, as you said
yeah, man,
before.
life finds a way. That was that was the Pirate Bay of 19
Which is
whatever,
theft
40
from a
something.
Best
Yeah,
Buy.
which is theft. Well, I think he stole it from a university, from the from the film department of a
Even
university.
better.
Mhm.
I was gonna ask you for advice you'd give to someone young who wanted to start out in graphics or a writer, but I feel like the advice you just gave is just about perfect. Like, just start
Yeah.
doing things yourself, and also
Yeah.
in your experience, I just see just getting your foot in the door anyway. Say you want to be a writer, getting in through graphics or some other way is a great way to make it happen because it seems like opportunities are so random. Because really, like opening up this theater totally randomly,
Hmm.
eventually, and doing graphics at Pokemon, eventually lead to you getting your dream job of writing for
Yeah.
Jon Stewart. You
Yeah.
know, so it's super fascinating. So, other than that, is there any advice you'd want to give to someone if they wanted to become a graphics artist or if they want to become a writer?
Yeah.
Or someone who wants to do both if they want to just become your
Yeah.
clone.
Yeah. There's a I'm trying to remember. There's a Hunter S. Thompson quote where he says something to the effect of like, I could not recommend this insanity to anyone, but it's worked for me. Um, so that's my joke answer. But my serious answer is, no one knows you're there until you let them know. No one knows what you're interested in until you show up, and tell them that's what you're interested in. Like, that was my big takeaway
Yeah.
from Sarah's thing, is like her fearlessness to be like, this is what
Yeah.
I do, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Can you help me do that? Like, so much of the game is just showing up
Yeah.
and being there, and also being ready. That's uh someone, who was it, Kevin McDonald from the Kids in the Hall did a thing at my theater once, and in a Q&A, he said, um, once in a lifetime opportunities come around a couple of times a year.
Mm.
Um, and the thing that makes them life changing or not life changing is if you're ready for them. Like, no one's gonna, if the opportunity is there, no one's gonna wait for you to go home and cut your reel together. Like,
Yeah.
have your reel ready. No one's gonna
Yeah.
wait for you to like write a spec script. Like, have it ready. Write the script.
Yeah.
Like, just be writing. Work on your shit now. So that when those opportunities come along, you have everything that you need. Here's my resume, here's my reel, here's my writing packet or samples or whatever. Like, if you're an actor, here's my headshot. You have that shit done and on lock, and the rest is just learning and consuming and taking every opportunity that you can to do the thing that you love. Because if you don't love it, get the fuck out. Like, why would you do this if you don't love it? Um,
It's a great point. Why would you
you know?
work 12 hours a day with crazy people?
Yeah.
And like if you don't love TV, don't do TV. Like I switched to
Yeah.
tech because I'm like I didn't love it anymore. You know, part of my wife got a job in
Yeah.
Silicon, but like I didn't
Sure.
want to stay awake for 20 hours anymore. Like
Yeah,
if
man.
you don't love entertainment, like you'll want to blow your brains out at the end of the
Yeah.
day unless you love it.
Yeah. Um yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, and that's it. Like, someone else will love it. Like, if you're sitting
Yeah.
there miserable, there's someone out there who wants your seat
Yeah.
so fucking badly. Get out of the seat. Let them
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah.
Like, go after a seat that you're going to be happier sitting in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was, I think, amazing advice. This was a
Oh, thank
fabulous
you.
interview.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
so happy you did this. I think there's going to be so many great takeaways, and also just your life is so fascinating. Like
Yeah.
finding out, one, you founded a magnet theater, which I used to do comedy shows, and that like this the whole weave of your life is so fascinating. I think if you're going to pitch a show, it could just be this story. At least it'd be like this to me is totally interesting. It's funny because I've
Oh,
met other writers and
yeah.
often they're writing fantasy stories and you talk to them about their own life and I'm like you should just tell
Yeah,
your
just do
own
that.
story because you're crazy.
Yeah. Oh,
But that was great.
we didn't even talk about when I first moved to LA before moving to New York, and lived in my car. Just dropped out of college and lived in my car. That was That's right. I went to college for 1 year. I dropped out, moved to LA, lived in my car, and then went to New York and lied my way into this graphics business.
Oh my god, that makes it even better, and even showing that you can literally go from but like you went from living in your
Yeah.
car to writing for the Daily Show. And what was it, like 5
Mhm.
years? That's crazy.
Oh, it was longer than that. It was
That was like
it was considerably longer than that. 15 years maybe?
15 years,
Something like
but
that
that's still amazing.
ish.
But that's legend. And also
Yeah.
right now,
Oh,
like
completely.
it's so like, especially if you're a creative and you know how hard it is. It's like people don't understand. Like it takes 10 years to make
Yeah.
it. It's like I'd spent a
Absolutely.
decade doing things I hated. Like, but just to know, like you might be literally living in your car in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and then you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be a writer or have your dream job, or something amazing can happen if you just
Yeah.
keep plugging away.
Well, when I got the Daily Show, they had just been nominated for a bunch of Emmys and were going to the Emmys. And it wasn't for got the writer's job for the Daily Show.
Yeah.
They had just gotten a bunch of Emmys and were going to get their Emmys. I was not up for an Emmy because I hadn't been writing for them. But I asked if I could come along, and it turned out one person couldn't get their ticket. So I got
Yeah.
their ticket from them and flew out to LA with all my new coworkers and soon to be friends, and went to the Emmys and went to like the Comedy Central after party. And while we're in
Wow.
the limo with all of my friends with their fucking Emmys and shit like that on their laps, I'm looking at the window of the limo and I'm like, oh, I know that Denny's. Oh, I know. Wait, where are we? Where the fuck are we going? Oh, so that's the Arby's. Where are we going? And we end up at this club that wasn't there when I lived there before. But like as we're in line for the club and I've like putting the neighborhood together, I'm like, look across the street and I'm like, that's where I used to park my car. I
Oh
used to
my
park my
god.
car right across the street from this fucking club.
That's
That's where I would sleep.
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to go out. To literally, you're at the like, that's like a fantasy story, that to literally go,
Yeah.
and then
It's
you're
fucking
you're
weird.
a writer of the Daily Show at the Emmys, and you're literally looking out at where you used to sleep in your car.
Mhm.
That is beautiful, and I am so happy for all your success. This is a great
Oh, thank you.
story, and thank you so
Thank
much. I
you.
definitely want to bring you on again, just because I feel like I only scratched the
Sure.
surface of your story. And do you
You have it.
have any
I'm out.
pluggables?
This is all every
No.
interesting thing I've ever done has been comprised in this. I'm sorry.
Do you have any pluggables or anything people should check out? I know you do a lot of different things.
I do. I do too many. I have a podcast actually that people might enjoy checking out. It's called At Least There's Coffee. It's a podcast about the bare minimum life has to offer. It's just me and my friend Patty, who are not the most like sunshine rainbowy people, talking about things that actually we do enjoy, that we love, and that make us enthusiastic and excited. So we just neither of us knows what the other person is going to talk about from week to week. One of us will just bring a topic and info dump on the other one, and the other one will ask questions where applicable. Yeah, it's fun. There's actually one about do you know Scanimate? Are you familiar with Scanimate?
Yes, I am. You told me all about this when we talked about it, when we walked
That's
across.
probably right.
When we met, me and Alex, we hadn't realized we had met 10 years prior and been drunk and chatted.
Mm-hmm.
But like when we re-met each other, we just spent the day and walked all of the Vegas Strip and like did like 10 years of bonding in like one day.
Yeah.
So I learned about Scanimate. But yeah, dude, send me the link and I'll put that in the show notes and everything.
Oh, I will.
And is there any other pluggables you got right now to check out?
Not really. It's mostly just me and Amanda hanging out with my dog.
Well, perfect. Let's call that a wrap. Thank you so much.
She's gonna get mad at me. She's gonna get mad at me if I call him my dog. It's our dog.
I'll edit it. I'll just our dog.
Great.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I had a blast.
All right. Bye,
Have a
everyone.
good night,
Thank you
sir.
so
Bye.
much for listening to Todd Talk, and you made it a whole hour and a half. So thank you for boosting my listening time.
Jesus Christ.